Hi, I'm Don Holbrook. I'm an economic development practitioner. I focus on transformational economic development strategies that do public-private partnerships between communities and investment opportunities from the private sector. One of the things that I like to talk about in the world of economic development is something we call world-class communities. And today, what I say is that world-class communities are no longer determined by their geographic location, or by their size, or by the population, or the quality of life or natural resources that they have, but rather they're determined by the quality and the vision and the mindset of their local leadership. So in other words, today communities that want to survive and thrive, or what I call thrival, in this current chaotic economy have to be, number one, self-starters. They have to help themselves, and they have to have a high quality of leadership leading them. Globalization is a subject that many people are afraid of, they get it wrong, and especially local communities. Part of what I point out in my books about globalization is, number one, that the United States of America has been the biggest creator of globalization in the world. And secondly, that is inevitable. It's going to happen. There's no way of stopping it, so we have to deal with it. The biggest travesty today of globalization has been the failure of our government to deal with how we're going to transition our workforce into this new economy. And that's why we're having the transitional economics that we're having right now in the current landscape. One of the things I like to talk about in my books is something I call the New Deal, kind of going back to the Rooseveltian theory from the 1930s. But in some instances, that was a good situation for us as a country. We have to focus on creating jobs that Americans can actually perform, jobs that put people back to work. This economy has caused a lot of people to be displaced, so we have to create a system that focuses on education, quality jobs, and getting our fiscal responsibilities back in order so that we can put the average American back to work. I like to discuss right now a subject that's really dear to me. It's called fearless leadership, especially for those of you that are involved in economic development. It requires that leaders today step forward and not be afraid to say what it takes to make impactful change. We have to tell people the situation we're in, the dire straits that can occur if we don't embrace change, and we have to lead people through that change and provide solutions for how we can move forward and take advantage of new opportunities. In all times of chaos and economic situations like we're in today, there are pearls of opportunity. Fearless leaders step forward and tell people, we can do it, we can make this happen. The world-class communities is one of my favorite subjects because they come in all shapes and sizes, small, medium, large, and supersized. It doesn't matter whether you're urban, whether you're rural. It's the quality of your mindset and how you embrace the change that needs to occur and progress within your community to make people want to visit there, live there, and work there. So any community can be a world-class community if they set their mind to it. One of the subjects in my books that I talk about, especially on the international front, is this topic that we call BRICE. And BRICE stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and Europe. And what I mean by that is those are the countries and the regions of the world that the United States is most going to have to deal with and compete with in the 21st century. So each one of those areas has a unique opportunity and a unique advantage in this new global economy. And the U.S. has got to respond, and particularly very, very carefully, so that we can contain and maintain and sustain our competitive advantage in the future. Everyone knows today that energy affects everything, from food prices to how far we can afford to drive, to our travel expenditures and our home economics. I call this petrolism. It's the combination of energy and politics. Everything now is being postured for how do we deal with this whole energy crisis. Petrolism is the compromise of putting politics into energy economics. And so now we're seeing energy, which touches everything, be driven politically as well as economically as part of market forces. And it's a scary factor because it causes all kinds of tension around the world and within our own population. People often ask me, what do you mean, Don, when you're talking about this perfect storm? And what I mean by the perfect storm is today the current transitional economy that we're in has been caused by a number of factors that have built up over time. The fact that we haven't fiscally responded to 40 years of fiscal problems that have been occurring. We haven't addressed those effectively. We have a tax code that's no longer effective in the current economy the way we work. Secondly, we have the retirement of all the baby boomers, so we have people taking more than they're giving to the system. And last, we have this whole energy crisis that's upon us and the fact that we have an addiction to fossil fuels. You combine that with the fact that we have this whole transition to a global economy, and you have the perfect storm. Many times when I'm out in communities, they ask me to do a workshop on what it takes to get investment today from an economic development standpoint. So we call this the art of the deal today. And the art of the deal today is about achieving deal equilibrium, where you have true public-private partnerships between the community and the investment groups or companies that are looking to invest in your community. And it may even be a company that's already in your community. But taking a real economic look at why does it make business sense for us to be in your community, and creating incentives and a business climate that addresses that is what it takes to create deals today in this environment. One thing that I call for in most of my presentations to people, especially in conversations with friends and colleagues and specialists around the world, is I talk about this concept of prosperity with a purpose. I believe all of us have the innate ability inside of us to make change, profound change in the world while we're here. We each have our own ability to drive our own legacies on this planet. We should be working towards things that we think will make this place a better place when we leave. Every one of us can take initiative to take action to do that. I call that prosperity with a purpose, and I challenge you to take that mantle on yourself. In my books, I talk a lot about the next big thing or the next bubble. We've been driven in the last 20 years by these bubbles in the economy, and we're still not over that addiction to bubbles. And the next big bubble, if you haven't guessed, is the green bubble. But the bottom line is, because energy touches everything, energy is what's driving everything today. There's a race now, like the space race of the 60s. This is an innovation race to see who's going to discover the best new energy systems that will get us off this fossil fuel addiction. So the next big thing is alternative energy, and who is going to win that race? It's imperative that the United States win the innovation race when it comes to new energy systems. Well, it never fails for people to ask me, what do you think about the current economy? Why are we in this current economy? Well, we've talked about that throughout this interview, that this is an economy that's been pent up from many factors. But the bottom line is we have to go through this economy. It's a transitional economy, and we will get through it. The next president has to face a lot of changes that we have to make as a nation. We have to become more global, believe it or not. We have to have better trade policies. We have to have a balanced fiscal budget. And we have to take responsibility to put Americans back to work. And we have to live within our means and change our lifestyle so that we can do that. And that means addressing lots of things, demonetizing the political system, and taking away the interest of special interest in controlling our country, especially our debtors. Right now, the United States has $2.5 trillion in a negative net worth. We have to change that. So as Americans, it's to our best interest that we focus on, with our next president, working to change things in this century. Thank you again today for visiting with me. I hope you'll come to my website, www.economicdeveloper.com, and contact me and let me know how you feel about these situations. I also hope you'll check out my books. The current book, The Little Black Book of Economic Development, is on all major online bookstore websites. You can also get it as an ebook or an audio book. It's been released as an audio book by Amazon and an ebook by Amazon. You can also watch in September for my new upcoming book called Who Moved My Smokestack? And that's a book about globalization and how it affects local communities and what you can do about it. So please check those out. I look forward to speaking with you in the near future. Thank you very much.
Additional books published by Mr. Holbrook are The Next America, Moving Beyond a Fragile Economy, and The Art of the Deal Today, which was for small business owners needing financing to grow their businesses. Both are available on Amazon, on paper, and in e-editions. His next book, The Knights Templar Uncloaked, A Theoretical History Connecting the Past to the Present, is scheduled for publication in the fall of 2012. He is also working on a novel, The Ninth Templar, scheduled for release in 2013. Mr. Holbrook has assisted and worked on hundreds of projects and small businesses over his 22-year career, with billions of dollars of cumulative economic direct and indirect impact and thousands of jobs have been created for Americans related to this work in his private, public, and pro bono capacities. You may contact Mr. Holbrook by email at economicdeveloper@gmail.com or visit his website at www.economicdeveloper.com. Thanks for watching.